Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. And, well, going into today, and Boris Johnson had claimed that he was the Incredible Hulk. He's not the Incredible Hulk. He's just a very naughty boy. And he went off to Luxembourg today to be humiliated yet again in the name of the United Kingdom. First, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So, there were a number of key events today, and in no particular order. Shall we start off with the press conference that wasn't a press conference? So, Boris Johnson was supposed to be speaking at a lectern next to the Luxembourg Prime Minister. However, at the last minute, he saw a crowd that weren't very happy with him. Bollocks to Boris and other signage appeared, and he decided to leg it to hide behind a sofa. Now, that left the Luxembourg Prime Minister, of course, addressing the press conference and then pretending to hand over to Boris Johnson, ridiculing him as he did so, having to point out that Boris Johnson has Brexit's fate in his hands. Where is he? Hiding under the table. I mean, the thing is as well, can Boris Johnson not actually now go anywhere? After he's toured parts of the United Kingdom recently and been barracked everywhere he's gone, can he not go anywhere without facing angry mobs? The way I'm sort of picturing it a little bit of science for you, is it's like the world is an organism and Johnson's a pathogen. And then the people are basically lymphocytes swarming whenever he comes near. Seems to be how it is. I don't see bands of supporters trying to make themselves heard or anything like that. Now, Boris Johnson tried to claim that, he tried to ask for the press conference to be moved inside for ages, well in advance. But it transpired that he only asked at the last minute. Of course he did. Who believes that this man ever does anything in advance? He'll have turned up, looked at the crowd and went, no. Can we move it? The problem, of course, is they weren't being difficult. All the sound equipment in the lectern, you can't just move it within a couple of minutes. So it was like, no, it's there now. So he beggared off. I mean, the other thing as well is later on, he said some quite remarkable things throughout the day. Later on, he was, when he'd crawled out from behind his sofa, under his table, wherever he'd been, he was saying the EU have had a belly full of Brexit. Yes, I think they have, and I think they've had more than a belly full of Johnson. But just as someone who's maybe been held hostage by armed robbers, yes, they want it to end, but they don't want it to end with a bullet through the brain. They want it to end by being let go. That's the situation. So he was saying they're sick of Brexit, therefore the solution is to end Brexit and just leave. Well, how about this, Boris? How about we just end Brexit? How about that? No. I mean, that's the other thing. He kept saying that the talks with the EU were going well. But the EU have to keep saying, but he hasn't said anything yet. He keeps saying we've had these talks, but he hasn't actually said anything. He hasn't said what he wants. He hasn't said what proposals he's got. And when you come back to the Luxembourg Prime Minister, I mean, many people have pointed out on Twitter just, the level of humiliation now that we are being ridiculed by a nation half the size of our second city. And the fact that other members of the EU Council, who've actually been scrupulously polite up to now, that they're now willing to ridicule him. I suppose it might be an indicator of two things. Maybe they just know that Boris Johnson is being disingenuous. They know he has no intention of trying to get a deal, so why bother being nice? The second thing is it could just be genuine frustration. Senior civil servants are used to things that take years and years to organise, of course. But politicians, not always. So I can well imagine that they're completely fed up of his very transparent antics. And of course, from their point of view, they haven't just gone there to talk about Brexit. They don't want to be going to the EU summit next month to be just talking about Brexit. They've got more important things to be doing. These meetings would have been taking place had Brexit never been a thing. There's a lot of important things on the agenda, and I'm sure they consider it a waste of their precious time, especially when the other side is not engaging in the spirit of the thing at all. This Prime Minister, for example, he was saying how impressed he was with the EU for giving the UK every courtesy in listening to what they had to say. In his case, he was pissed off by Bojo the Wonder Clown when he was hiding in a table in a tent. Probably couldn't imagine how he'd put up with him if he had to actually talk to him for any length of time. Guy Verhofstadt was tweeting a picture of Johnson's empty lectern and wrote, "From Incredible Hulk to Incredible Sulk." And again, Boris Johnson was yet again reiterating that he was going to take the UK out of the EU on October the 31st, despite the fact that if he doesn't get a deal, there is no legal route for him to do that. But he's saying it anyway, but he keeps saying, "Oh, I'm going to obey the law, but we're definitely going on October the 31st. Is that like, I'm going to obey the law, but I am going to rob this bank? Okay. But he also said, rather curious, I know he's sort of saying all sorts of mad things now, and a bit like Trump is getting into the thing of, what the hell, go for it. He's also saying that that's what the other EU members want as well. Now, yes, I understand they don't want this thing to keep dragging on aimlessly. But as a number of them have said, better that it drags on further than you end it with the worst situation imaginable. You know, so if the EU members actually wanted us to leave with no deal on October the 31st, it's funny how none of them have said so. Because they've been quite happy to say what they do want, publicly. But if he's sure, then it should be no problem, should it? If he's absolutely certain that even just one EU member state definitely doesn't want us to go any further, no problem. He doesn't even need to threaten to break the law. He can just sign the letter cheerfully as you like, send it off, securing the knowledge that the EU Council will refuse to grant the extension requested. Or that at least one of them will. You know, in a further debasement of our country, Tory MPs were also trying to wheedle a refusal out of Poland. Because I'm quite sure they'd rather not have the courts force them to do this. So they are trying every avenue they can. They have tried that before. The last time they tried it, they were told to piss off in no uncertain terms. Hopefully the same will happen again. And when meeting with Juncker for the first time, Johnson, this is the guy, by the way, who hasn't won a single vote in Parliament and who then suspended the Assembly against the will of the democratically elected people of the UK, suddenly became an expert on democracy by saying that the backstop was undemocratic. Didn't really say how that was, but he did again say that digital solutions will totally work without explaining what they were or without making any attempts to put any of them in place. After all, if these solutions existed, they have to be implemented to do anything. Like, I can't just sit here with some piles of bread and say I'm going to make some toast. Or have you got a toaster? No, but toasters exist, so it's not a problem. But I haven't got one, so I can't make toast. They have to be implemented. And if they have to be implemented and he wants us to leave, what now? 5 or 6 weeks' time? Then why hasn't he implemented them? Doesn't need the EU's permission to implement them on our side. Why haven't they been put in? He can show that they all work then. No problem at all. And then the other side will be delighted. But no, doesn't exist. It's as simple as that. He also said that he hoped to have a deal arranged both before the EU summit and after it, in a spectacular display of temporal knot tying that would have made, you know, Stephen Hawking proud, really. And finally, the government announced that the current bi-weekly meetings with the EU will now take place daily. Now, given that they don't seem to be saying anything in them, I suppose it's not really too much of a bind in having them more frequently, other than the waste of everyone's time. But the thing is, it got me to thinking. So I thought he'd be doing that in summer. That's exactly what I thought he'd be doing this summer. Going to the EU, sending his envoys and pretending to negotiate, doing exactly what he's doing now. Going there, pretending to negotiate and going, oh, it's going very well. We're going to get a deal. Absolutely. Like I said, 1 in a million chance that we're not going to get a deal. It's all going swimmingly. And he didn't. Instead, what he did is he point blank refused to talk to them and says, I'm not talking to you until you drop the silly backstop and you are prepared to give us a free trade agreement without any of your silly red tape. Now, given that the EU haven't done either of those things, does this represent a colossal climb down from Boris Johnson and his government? That's what I'm thinking. But anyway, That's a day in the life of Boris Johnson disappearing off to Luxembourg. Let's see how we can humiliate the country again tomorrow. Hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.